January in Chicago can kill you. The night I whispered, "I can't breathe." A stranger lifted the filthy cloth off my baby's face and his whole body went still. If it were you, would you stop in a place like that? Or keep walking and pretend you heard nothing? My name is Tanya Johnson, and this is the night everything ended and everything began. I was on the third level of an abandoned parking garage back against concrete that felt like a freezer door, wind sneaking through broken railings, lights flickering like they were tired of trying. Glass crunched when I shifted. My red jacket, ripped and thin, did nothing. I had hope pressed to my chest, 3 months old, wrapped in a dumpster cloth, and whatever heat I had left. 3 nights since the eviction, 3 days since my inhaler ran out, 3 seconds from giving up. Numbers start counting you instead of the other way around. Asthma doesn't negotiate. You know what I mean? It starts as a pinch behind the ribs, a thin whistle you hope nobody hears, then the straw gets smaller and smaller, until air feels like a rumor. I tried to breathe slow. In through my nose, out through my mouth like the nurse taught me at the free clinic, but my chest had its own plans. I kept checking the cloth, kept making sure Hope's mouth was covered from the wind, but not covered by me, because that's how your brain works when you're terrified. A checklist while you drown. I whispered a prayer. Not a beautiful one, just please. To God, to the night, to the wall holding me up. Please. Then boots. Slow, careful, like someone trying not to scare a stray dog. A flashlight swept the level, stuttered past my corner, snapped back and locked on. "Oh my God," a man said. Low, close, shocked in a way that wasn't disgust. He dropped to one knee, his coat brushing the dirty floor. "Miss, can you hear me? Can you talk to me?" My throat burned. I wanted to say so much. All I could manage was, "I can't breathe, my baby." He lifted the cloth and everything in him changed. Breath, eyes, hands. "There's a baby," he said, and his voice cracked clean in half. He peeled off his heavy coat and tucked it around both of us like he'd practiced. Heat hit so hard I almost sobbed. Shame, too. I wanted to push it back, say, no, tell him he needed it more. My body had already decided. He was already dialing. Address hypothermia infant urgent. He kept saying, "Stay with me. Both of you stay with me." If it were you, what would you have done? Call and wait. Or pick us up and run. He ran. One arm under my knees, one behind my back, he moved like he had permission from gravity. Night air slapped my face. He slid me into a black car that did not belong on that block. Smooth doors, warm seats, leather that smelled like a store I never entered. "Who are you?" I rasped, words small and ragged. "Julian," he said, eyes flicking to me, then back to the road. "Julian Carter. I'm not leaving you." Yeah, that happened. I filed the name in a foggy corner of my brain as the city blurred, heat, blasting coat wrapped around me and my tiny heartbeat. Somewhere between the ramp and the ER doors, I let go and trusted a stranger. I woke up to beep-beep monitors, a hot blanket, something plastic in the crook of my arm. Fluorescent lights hummed like bees. "Where am I?" I croaked. "Chicago Memorial," a nurse said, with that calm that makes you want to cry. "Severe asthma attack, stage 2, hypothermia. Your baby is in the NICU warming unit. She's stable. She's a fighter." I cried then ugly and loud because when someone says your baby is alive, gratitude rushes in hard and leaves you with nothing to hold the tears back. "I can't pay," I blurted, shame already climbing my spine. "The gentleman who brought you, he's handling it." The nurse said, a small smile like she had seen this go wrong and was glad it wasn't. He came the next afternoon. Tall, early 30s, maybe dark hair, a suit that probably had its own insurance policy. Except his eyes were warm, not cold. "Miss Johnson," he said like he'd practiced not to sound fancy. "Please call me Tanya." "Thank you." Too many times, too fast. And then I cried again. He sat down like my life was a meeting he refused to reschedule. "I grew up poor," he said, not bragging, not pitying. "There were nights like yours. People helped us. My mom taught me that when I had the ability, I'd pass it on without expecting anything back. Not charity, help. There's a difference. Do you think that's fair? That strangers sometimes hold your life when systems won't?" A social worker had been called. Standard mother and infant from the street. Julian didn't flinch. "They'll need a safe plan for discharge," he said. "You will have one." He offered a furnished one-bedroom in a building he owned. "I can't pay rent," I said, stomach knotting like a fist. "I'm not asking you to, not yet. Focus on breathing. Focus on hope. We'll figure the rest out later." Pride can keep you warm on moral grounds and freeze you to death in real life. I looked from him to the photo the NICU nurse had printed of my baby under a gentle lamp pink coming back to her cheeks. "Yes," I said. "We'll take it." He meant every word. 3 days later, I walked into a quiet, clean apartment with hope in my arms and saw a stocked fridge, clean towels, a crib that didn't wobble, diapers stacked like a promise, even a little bouncer with a yellow duck on it. My hands started shaking. "This isn't charity," he said quickly, watching my face. "This is a helping hand. Charity can make people feel small. A helping hand recognizes anyone can fall, and everybody needs help sometimes." I stood there with my whole life in my arms and felt my ribs make space for that sentence. He didn't ghost after the keys. He gave me tools, a laptop, enrollment in a job training program his foundation partnered with, business basics, computer apps, customer service, all online so I could learn while hope napped on my chest. He didn't assume I couldn't do it. He assumed I could. That matters. When someone believes you can climb your legs, stop shaking. I wrote a schedule on the whiteboard he stuck on my fridge. 6 Huzzarers feed and change. 6:30 coffee. 7 Huzzaro to 10 Huzzaro course modules noon to 2 while hope napped repeat. I learned how to write a decent email and not sound desperate. How to manage a calendar, how to keep records, how to breathe while multitasking. Hope learned to laugh when I opened spreadsheets. You ever feel your identity crawl back into your bones after you thought it starved? Yeah. That happened. He checked in. Short calls, gentle texts, sometimes stopping by with coffee, and questions that didn't pry. He drove us to Hope's 6-month checkup, carried the diaper bag, made ridiculous faces that had her giggling so hard she hiccuped. The pediatrician said, "You're doing an excellent job, Mom." And I tucked that sentence in the safest pocket of my heart. A month later, he asked if I would consider working at his foundation. Family Services. "I want someone who understands what it feels like to need a hand," he said. "Someone who can talk to people without making them feel like a case." I worried about what people would say, that I got the job because he helped me. Then I remembered the promise I made in that freezing garage. I would never let pride make my daughter pay. I said yes. The office sat high in a glass building, sunlight pouring in like forgiveness. My desk was near intake next to Patricia, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a spine of steel who could solve 3 problems with 1 phone call and make you feel safe while she did it. The daycare on site welcomed Hope like a tiny celebrity. I learned the software and the scripts, learned when to throw the script away and just listen. People would tell me stories and I could say, I believe you. I've stood where you are. Do you know what it does to a person to be believed? Without an eye roll or a sigh. Then came the gala. Black tie, donors, music that moves like money. I almost stayed home. My friend Nicole loaned me a navy dress and told me to breathe. I walked in and immediately wanted to turn around. Then I saw Julian across the room. He saw me, and everything else got quiet. You look beautiful, he said, simple and steady. He introduced me to donors, told my story with my permission, asked with his eyes before each hard part. People listened. People gave. Later, when the band started a slow song, he held out his hand. Would you like to dance? We moved in a slow circle, close enough to hear each other's breathing. You're not just someone I helped, he whispered. You're someone I care about. I took a breath that didn't hurt and said the truth. I care about you too. Complicated employer, landlord, rescuer. Sure. Real anyway. Absolutely. Mini call to action. Because what happened next will blow your mind. Stick around, because this is where the story flips. A week later, dinner at a quiet place where the waiter lets you sit as long as you like. He told me about building his company from a desk he found on the curb, about his mom who volunteered at a shelter every week even after he had money. I told him about delivering hope in a clinic and the bill that followed me like bad weather. He walked me to my door and kissed me like he was asking a question and answering it at the same time. After that, we found a rhythm. Lunches at work, weekend walks with hope in the stroller, cheap takeout, deep talks, no rush. 6 weeks in, he drove us to a building with scaffolding and a sign that read, Future Home of Carter Family Center. Remember the garage where I found you? He asked. My stomach dropped and my hands went cold with the memory. We bought it, he said, but he said it soft like a secret. First floor, homeless services. Second, job training. Third, child care. Free. A place to come in from the cold and leave with more than a blanket. I want you to help run it. Sometimes love is flowers. Sometimes it's a budget spreadsheet. Sometimes it's both. Here's the twist. A Tuesday morning phone buzz, his voice tight. Can you come up? There's a situation. I found him with hair he hadn't bothered to fix and a desk buried under contracts. The Riverside project fell through, he said. Big investor pulled out last minute. That was the money for 3 centers, including expanding ours. If we don't fill the gap fast, we cut programs, maybe staff. He said, your job is safe, but he looked like he was apologizing for gravity. My stomach fell through the floor. Then an idea swung the door open. Stop chasing one giant fish. Build a net. What if we ask the neighborhood to invest, I said. Not just with money, with time, materials, work. Churches, barbershops, bodegas, small contractors, neighborhood associations. 100 small pieces that add up to one big miracle. If the community owns it, they'll defend it, they'll sustain it, they'll brag about it at dinner. He sat up straighter. Community capital, he said. Ownership. Exactly. And no one donor gets cold feet and holds the whole thing hostage. We started calling. We held meetings in church basements where coffee tastes like hope in living rooms, that smelled like sofrito in a back room at the barbershop, where the conversation is always honest. The baker pledged trays for opening day. The hardware store offered materials at cost. A local crew took framing at a deep discount. A retired businessman brought spreadsheets and wisdom for free. Teenagers painted. Mothers watched toddlers so other mothers could sit through training. It was messy and loud and real, and it was ours. The press found us because Mrs. Soto from the salon posted a video of us blue taping classroom lines, and her caption made people cry. Checks came in from strangers who had never stepped foot in Riverside because they believed in a neighborhood refusing to wait for permission. 3 weeks after the investor bailed, we had enough to break ground. Not the original plan, maybe something better. Do you think that investor was justified because the numbers were too risky? Or do you think risk looks different when you've never had to choose between heat and food? The day we celebrated that final round of commitments after Hope fell asleep, in the small crib Julian keeps at his place, he handed me a tiny box. I opened it, braced for a ring, and found a simple gold bracelet, a small heart charm engraved with hope. He laughed when he saw my face. "Not yet," he said. "Soon. I want to do this right. For now, I want you to have something that reminds you you gave me hope too." We cried. We're soft like that. Months later, the center opened where the garage used to swallow the wind. Ribbon-cutting cameras, officials who like microphones. I barely heard the speeches. I was busy greeting the people who mattered. Mothers who needed a warm room and a path forward. Teens who wanted a certificate and a shot at a steady paycheck. Grandparents who needed a place to play checkers out of the cold. Across the room, Julian watched me with a look I can still feel on my skin. I mouthed, "I love you." He mouthed it back. First time we said it. Call it cheesy if you want. I don't care. And then, one October night, he drove me back to the building after hours, lights low except for the 3rd floor. "Why are we here?" I asked, half laughing, because he had been grinning since we left the apartment, like he was holding a secret that wouldn't sit still. He led me up the stairs, past photos we had hung, families graduating from programs, kids on scooters in the hallway, volunteers with paint on their cheeks. The 3rd floor was strung with white lights, candles in safe holders, music. Low, a wall covered in pictures of our year. Me in the hospital bed, holding a pink-faced Hope. The first apartment, the gala blue tape on concrete, the groundbreaking. I turned, and he was on one knee. He didn't perform. He spoke like he wanted to honor the truth. He told me about hearing a thin wheeze in the dark and choosing to turn his light, about following that sound because something told him to. He said I saved my own life. He said he just put tools in my hands and watched me build. Then he asked, "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life loving you and Hope? Will you be my family?" My yes was easy. It had been growing since that night under a filthy cloth. We danced there awkward and perfect, my ring catching the light city spread outside like a promise. He told me about a new initiative at the foundation and asked me to co-direct it. "Equal partners," he said, and he meant it. I took the job. I took the life. I took the man who turned a garage into a door. Now here's where I leave you with a knot I still pick at. What changed my life wasn't a policy or a vote. It was a billionaire with headlights pointed in the right direction at the right time. Is that how it should work? Is it okay that someone like Julian can step in and do what entire systems failed to do? Or is that proof the systems are broken and we keep putting bandages on bullet holes? Do you trust the helping hand, or worry about who gets chosen and who doesn't? Social services showed up to make sure my baby was safe. Good. But how do we make sure that doesn't turn into punishment for being poor? Do you think that's fair? I don't have clean answers. I have a warm apartment, a daughter who laughs with her whole body, a job that lets me hand the same tools to the next person, and a community that showed me ownership can grow where shame used to live. I have a bracelet that says hope and a partner who keeps promises. I have a memory of a night so cold it took my breath, and a man who refused to walk past. If it were you in that garage, would you have stopped? Would you have lifted the cloth or looked away? If you're still here, thank you. Stick around in your own life when you hear footsteps in the dark. Turn on your light. And now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was I right to accept help the way I did? Was Julian right to offer it the way he did? Should community centers depend on wealthy donors, or should we be building something different from the ground up? Share your take, argue with me, argue with each other, but keep it respectful. And if you've ever received help that changed your path, or given help that made a real difference, tell that story. Someone in their own winter needs to hear it. If this gave you even a little hope, hit subscribe. Send this to one person who needs a hand, and let's build a chain of helping hands that doesn't snap when the wind picks up.